The welcome sign outside the porte-cochere glowed like a soft lantern, the Sterling at Seaside Bay, warm brass letters against white stucco. Bellmen in navy jackets wheeled carts across travertin as a salt breeze pushed through the palms. Behind the fountain, a wall of bougainvillea dyed the air magenta. I pulled into the valet line in a decade-old Corolla with a coffee stain on the passenger seat and a chip in the windshield I kept forgetting to fix. The valet looked at the car, then at me, then at my family spilling out of black SUVs behind me like an arriving delegation. He didn't recognize me. That was by design. "Welcome to the Sterling," the valet said as I stepped out. "Checking in?" "Just visiting family," I answered, shouldering my weekender bag. "I'll park in self-parking." "It's a long walk," he warned with a practiced smile. "I like walks," I said, and headed for the ramp. Inside the lobby, light poured through a cathedral of glass. The scent of citrus and cedar drifted from somewhere invisible. My Aunt Renee squealed when she saw me. "Rachel. There you are. We were worried you got lost. Oh right, you work in hotels." The last words landed like a shrug. I kissed cheeks, Aunt Renee, Uncle Paul, cousins, in-laws. A cluster of siblings and their spouses hovered near the check-in desk, pretending not to watch the room rates flash on the marble screen. My mother adjusted her scarf the way she does when she's about to make a comment designed to draw blood without leaving a mark. "Sweetheart," she said, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't there. "You could have told us you'd be late. Everyone's starving. We waited on the cabana order because you're the expert, but, oh. I forgot. This isn't your type of motel. It's a resort, Mom." Right, she said. "But you know these places. You manage what is it again? Highway motel?" "Operations," I said simply. "Manager." The cousins exchanged glances. Dylan, the one who talks in bullet points because of an MBA that keeps bursting out of him, leaned in. "Do you ever get, like, weird people at motels? Criminals? Do you have to throw them out? You ever call the cops?" "Sometimes we call a locksmith," I said. "Mostly we call housekeeping." Laughter. "The good kind, at first. Then the other kind." We caravanned toward the private wing where the Sea Star cabanas were reserved under Morrison family reunion. 24 relatives wandered through white curtains, antique lounges arranged around a pool so blue it looked algorithmic. Servers appeared like choreography. I ordered water. Brad, my sister Lindsay's husband, clapped me on the back like a little league coach. "Ratch, grab a drink. You're off motel duty." "I'm good." Lindsay wore a straw hat the size of a coffee table. "Live a little, Rachel. We're celebrating family." She held court from a chaise like a benevolent despot, pointing at menus and telling people what they'd like. "Get the Wagyu sliders and the truffle fries. Oh, and the magnum of rose. It's only," she glanced down. "Ha! Pricey. Uncle Paul, you're good for it." Uncle Paul spread his hands. "I'm on golf fees. Ask the hotel expert." His eyes landed on me. "Ratch, can't you do your hotel thing? Employee discount?" "I don't work here," I said, smiling. "Right, but it's all the same industry," Aunt Renee chimed in. "You people have codes." "You people?" I said lightly. "You know what she means," Mom said, already bored with my resistance. "Besides, Rachel, this is exactly your territory. Make yourself useful. Make yourself useful." The family motto embroidered on our childhood towels. I checked the time. 4:05 p.m. The CEO's plane had landed at 3:40. She would be here by 4:30 if traffic cooperated. I counted back through the beats the way I once counted empty rooms at my first property, a roadside motor lodge off I-84 that smelled like coffee and rain. That motel taught me everything, the value of knowing every hinge and drain, the way people treat what they think is small. "Rachel, you're zoning out." Dylan was holding up a phone. "Group photo. For the WhatsApp." We lined up beside the pool. The resort photographer, in linen and loafers, arranged us like we were furniture. On 3, he sang. 1, 2, wait, Lindsay said. Let's put Rachel in the middle. It's kind of funny. She's the hotel professional. This is her big day. Everyone laughed, because it wasn't my big day. The shutter chirped. The photographer thanked us. People peeled off into smaller conversations. Rumors got passed around like hors d'oeuvres. Rachel could get us free upgrades. Rachel could waive corkage. Rachel could pull strings at the spa. Rachel could book 3 last-minute suites at the sold-out Sterling because hotels talk to each other and she's in the system. Speaking of, Mom said, tapping the pool menu with a manicured nail. We ordered the chef's tower for 6. Are you sure your little motel salary can handle your share? Or should Dad cover you? I'll cover my part. You always say that, she said, something like pity sharpening her words. But it's silly to struggle in silence when you have family. We could help you, Rachel. You're 35. No husband, no house, Mom, I said softly. I'm your mother. I get to be worried. A group of executives in navy suits cut through the cabanas like migrating birds. A few staff members followed at a respectful distance. The suit stopped at the far cabana to shake a hand. The hand belonged to Victoria Rhodes, the resort's general manager. A diamond-thin woman with posture you could balance a tray on. I caught Victoria's eye. She looked startled for a fraction of a second, then reassembled her face into professional grace and pivoted toward us with the executives in tow. Good afternoon, she said. Welcome to the Seastar Cabanas. I hope you're enjoying the pool. We are, Lindsay said brightly. We were just saying my sister should use her motel powers to get us a discount. The lead executive had silver hair, minimal jewelry, a face both kind and unamused, stepped forward. You must be the Morrison party. That's us, Aunt Renee said, waving. Family reunion. We're very important. The executive's gaze passed over the group the way a beam passes over waves. Then she saw me. Her entire posture changed, something like relief, something like joy. Ms. Morrison, she said, and the air shifted. We didn't expect you so early. Conversations thinned to silence. Lindsay's smile calcified. Dylan blinked. Mom's mouth opened and then closed without producing a sound. Hi, Elaine, I said. Traffic was kind. Welcome home, she said simply. Home. The word landed like a key in a lock. Everyone, Victoria said, voice pitched carefully, this is Elaine Park, Group CEO of Lux Hospitality. Elaine nodded to the cabana, to the cousins, to the plates of fries cooling in the shade. And this, she said, is Ms. Rachel Morrison, majority owner of Lux Hospitality Group. No one moved. For a second, even the palm fronds seemed to pause. Uncle Paul recovered first. Majority owner, he repeated, as if testing whether the words would hold their shape. Elaine smiled. That's right. Lux Hospitality owns and operates 157 properties across 5 brands, Sterling, Harbor House, Juniper and Pine, Urban Quarters, and yes, your beloved highway motels. Ms. Morrison chairs our board, holds voting control through Morrison Holdings, and is, effectively, my boss. A server, blessedly unaware of the tectonic plate shift, set down a tray of sliders and retreated like a gazelle. Lindsay's hat lifted as her eyebrows tried to escape. Rachel, she said, the name a new language. You own this place? This one, the one in Aspen you liked at Christmas, the one in Maui where you got the Instagram private beach photo, and the business traveler hotel you complained about in Chicago because the pillows were too supportive, I said. Among others. Dylan's MBA leaked out of his shoes. Brad sat down hard enough to rattle ice. Mom found her voice by stepping into the past. You manage a motel, she insisted, as if repetition could make it true. You told us, I told you I worked in hotels, I said. I didn't say how. Why didn't you, she started, and stopped. Because the answer was obvious. Because she knew. Elaine set a leather folio on the cabana table like a gavel. We have a small matter of internal business to attend to, if you don't mind. We do mind, Aunt Renee said faintly. It won't take long, Elaine said, then turned to me. 2 items, Ms. Morrison. I nodded. First, the Seaside Bay redevelopment. The City Council approved the final permits this morning. Congratulations. She pushed a document across the table. Sign here so we can push construction on the North Annex. I signed. My signature looked modest next to the gravity of the document. It always did. Second, Elaine said, an internal policy exception. The Friends and Family Code was used multiple times for this party's reservation in ways not compliant with policy. A light breeze. Somebody's glass clinked. Victoria cleared her throat. I flagged it because the codes were used to stack discounts across suites, golf fees, and spa packages. Also, minibar charges were rerouted to a housekeeping line item. That's absurd, Aunt Renee snapped. We don't even know what that means. It means someone attempted to hide charges by moving them into a department's cost of goods so they wouldn't appear on the final folio, Victoria said, polite but steel. It's fraud. All heads turned as if drawn by a magnet toward Brad, who turned the color of damp paper. He tried a laugh that sounded like a cough. Guys. I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. You know how systems are. Glitch why? Elaine glanced at me. I nodded once. Rachel, Mom whispered, say something. I did. We'll review all hospitality policy violations from this group and handle them as we handle any guest. Lindsay went rigid. You're not serious. I am. But we're family, Mom said, reflex more than thought. Exactly, I said quietly. Which is why we won't humiliate the staff by pretending policy doesn't apply in front of them. Elaine closed the folio. We'll talk in a private room. Of course, I said. We walked as a strange procession through the pool area, the CEO, the GM, me, and the family drifting behind like a school of fish trying to understand a new current. Staff members glanced up and then looked away, practiced in the art of noticing without intruding. Elaine led us into a glass-walled conference room near the lobby, one of those elegant spaces with invisible speakers and a table that looked like it could levitate. A plate of citrus was pretending not to be a microphone. The door side shut. Elaine tapped the tablet. A screen on the wall lit up with line items. Names. Dates. Codes. A spreadsheet that could double as a mirror. Let's start with facts, she said. 3 suites were booked under a Level 3 FNF code reserved for corporate employees and board. That alone is a violation. Additional charges were split across 5 rooms and rerouted to housekeeping and banquet incidentals. The code was entered from the same device at 11:41 p.m. on Tuesday from the bar. She raised her eyes. The bartender remembers the group. Brad stared at the table. His knee bounced an inch off the floor. Elaine continued, tone neutral. We're not here to shame anyone. We protect our people and our culture. That includes protecting our frontline staff from being forced to break rules for guests who claim inside connections. Are we being accused of a crime? Uncle Paul asked, puffing up like a threatened bird. You're being informed of policy, Elaine said. The line between those two things depends on what happens next. I looked at my family, really looked. The outrage, the confusion, the sudden recalibration of how to stand in the room. This is a family reunion, Mom tried again, gentler. We didn't mean, no one ever means, I said. They just expect. Elaine gave me space with a slight step back. She understood this wasn't her scene to play, it was mine. I opened the folder Victoria had placed beside me. Inside were printed folios and policy documents, receipts of a different kind. I slid copies toward the people who had used the codes. I didn't need to say their names. I'm not going to litigate this, I said. We'll treat it like we treat any guest. You'll pay the correct rate for the suites you booked, the correct charges for the services you used, and a policy misuse fee that's applied for infractions. In addition, you will write an apology to the housekeeping supervisor whose department was used to hide your bar tab. You can't be serious, Aunt Renee said, color rising. I'm very serious. But you're the owner, Dylan blurted. Just erase it. That's not how this works, I said. Not for you, not for anyone. Lindsay's eyes were glassy, like she was looking at a reflection rather than a person. This is because we teased you about your motel, she said, half accusation, half hope. We were just joking. You weren't joking, I said, calm. You were performing status. Silence hummed like a power line. I went on. I worked my first motel through a winter where the heat failed twice and I checked pipes at 2 a.m. with a flashlight and a prayer. I worked front desk through spring break where a bus tour left us 14 rooms over capacity and I found cots and called the night manager at the property down the road because a grandmother needed a real bed. I scrubbed bathtubs the day the housekeeping team came down with the flu. I learned to read P&L statements at that desk between guest check-ins and invoices because I could either learn them or lose the property. I let the truth settle between us like snowfall. I built Lux by learning from every small place I finished. Small rooms. Small towns. Small assumptions. Small respect. I built this so that a housekeeper could pay for orthodontics and a night clerk could study for a degree without begging for a schedule swap and a general manager could call for backup and get it. I looked at the faces that had shaped me by not seeing me. So no, I said. I won't erase your bar tab. I won't erase the misuse fee. I won't ask a housekeeper to swallow your bill. That's not what this company is for. Mom stared at the papers like they might turn into a rescue boat. Rachel, she began, voice softening into something fragile, why didn't you tell us? Because you liked me better when I was small. Because my silence made you comfortable. Because I wanted to know who you were when you thought I had nothing to trade. I tried to, I said instead. You heard what you wanted. Uncle Paul cleared his throat. What happens if we decline to pay? Elaine answered, the professional again. We pursue as we would with any guest. We have card on file. We can also, if necessary, escalate. I'd prefer not to. We'll pay, Aunt Renee muttered. Brad pressed 2 fingers into his eyes. I messed up, he said. I asked the bartender if there was a, inside code. I might have implied things. Thank you for saying that out loud, I said. Apologize to the bartender, too. He shouldn't have to choose between a guest's pressure and his job. Elaine slid a small stack of apology forms across the table, our HR department's quiet inventions. The forms weren't for public display. They were for culture repair. We left the conference room in a silence shaped like respect. Outside, the lobby was still the lobby, check-ins, laughter, a toddler chasing light across a stone floor. The world didn't crack open when the truth arrived, it just realigned. Back at the cabana, the group's energy had thinned into 2 currents, those pretending nothing had happened and those unsure how to breathe. The servers continued to do their work with that invisible grace that is the mark of a good property. The show goes on, but without pretending the set is real life. We ate. We made small conversation that had been measured and weighed before it left our mouths. The sun slid lower. At 6 o'clock, a string trio set up near the pool bar. At 6:15, Victoria returned with envelopes. She placed them gently on the table. Folio copies, she said. With corrected rates and charges. Your cards are on file, but I wanted to offer you the option to review if you prefer to split anything differently. Aunt Renee's lips pursed like a zipper. We're fine, she said, and signed. One by one, they did the same. Names became signatures. Signatures became a kind of truth. When it was done, Lindsay stood at the edge of the pool, arms folded against a wind that hadn't arrived. Her hat sat on a chair like a toppled crown. I stepped up beside her. We watched a strip of orange climb the horizon. Is there a world, she said finally, where you forgive us for being who we've been? Forgiveness isn't a switch, I said. It's a boundary. You keep it, or you don't. She nodded, eyes glossy. You know what's funny? She laughed without humor. I used to think your motel job made you small. Turns out, it made you this. It made me someone who knows the price of sheets by thread count and by overtime hours, I said. It made me someone who thinks the person changing your pillowcase deserves the same dignity as the person signing your folio. We were quiet. Somewhere behind us, Uncle Paul was telling someone about a bird he'd seen that morning, as if he could talk himself back into the older story. Ratch, Lindsay said, voice small in a new way. Did we lose you? You lost the version of me who let you talk over her, I said. You can still know me. But not on those terms. A server approached with a small white box. Ms. Morrison, she said. From pastry. A happy birthday tart, compliments of the kitchen. I smiled at her name tag. Thank you, Janelle. I said her name out loud so my family would hear the weight of it. She blushed and retreated. Birthday? Mom said from behind us. Surprise, then guilt. Oh. God. Rachel, how did I not? It's okay, I said. It wasn't, once. It was now. Elaine reappeared near the cabana entrance, phone in hand. She lifted it slightly, a question. I nodded. She joined us by the pool, the CEO stepping into a family scene like a stage cue. 2 quick items before I head out, she said. Board call at 7 a.m. tomorrow, Zoom links in your inbox. And our scholarship program, they approved the new cohort. 20 housekeeping staff across the group starting community college in the fall. We'll announce next week. Lindsay's head turned. Scholarship? For staff, I said. We cover tuition, books, and flexible shifts. Mom stared at me like I was a click she'd missed. You do that? We do that, I said, nodding toward Elaine, toward Victoria, toward the invisible people who make hotels into places. Elaine smiled. Happy birthday, Ms. Morrison. Thank you, I said. After she left, the evening softened. The trio played Moon River the way water plays light. Kids leapt into the pool, screamed, laughed, forgot to whisper their joy. Into acceptable shapes. People filtered out. Folios settled. Apology forms, signed by grown men and women, sat in a neat stack like origami. The family gathered their bags, their leftover arguments, their fragmented myth about who I was. Mom lingered by the cabana, clutching the pastry box like a missing piece. We were proud of you when we thought you worked at a motel, she said, and for once I believed her. We just thought it meant something else. It does mean something else, I said. It means I learned where real dignity lives. She swallowed and put a hand out like a question. I took it. Not as an answer. As a beginning. Come tomorrow, I said. Tour the property with me. Not as guests. As students. You'll meet Janelle. And Cam at the front desk. And Jorge, who can reset a kitchen line in 3 minutes flat. You'll see what I see. Okay, she said. We'll come. The next morning, they did. They wore sneakers instead of entitlement. We walked the back of house corridors. We toured laundry, where steam breathed like a living thing. We watched housekeeping flip a suite from chaos to calm like a magic trick that only looks easy when you ignore the hands. We stood behind the front desk at 11 a.m., when guests become pumpkins and luggage becomes a sociological study. Mom watched a housekeeper show a new hire how to fold a duvet without breaking either her back or the fibers. She cried. Quietly. Lindsay asked more questions than I had time to answer. Uncle Paul shook hands with the line cook who rescued his cousin's dinner the night before after the table, forgot to mention an allergy. At the end, in the staff lounge with a corkboard of birthdays and a microwave that should have been replaced last quarter, I taped a notice that said new scholarship cohort announced. The room clapped for itself, then went on living. We stepped back into the public part of the hotel. The lobby was a poem about light. The bellmen were composers. The guests were the melody. Rachel, Mom said, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm trying to fix it with words, but you don't have to fix it, I said. Just stop breaking it. She nodded. We'll learn. Start by tipping, I said. Then by listening. They tipped. They listened. They left a stack of handwritten notes at the desk for Janelle, for Cam, for Jorge, for the team we pretend is invisible until we need towels. There were still jokes at family gatherings after that weekend, because we are who we are. But the jokes learned better manners. The laughter found new targets, mostly ourselves. When someone asked for a code or an upgrade, another someone cleared their throat and said, softly, policy. It became our private word for respect. A month later, I drove back to my first motel. The sign still buzzed. The coffee still tasted like hope and burnt earth. I walked the corridor where I'd once measured success by how many light bulbs I could replace before midnight. The night clerk, new to me, not new tonight, looked up. Can I help you? Yes, I said. I'd like to sit in the lobby for a minute. He nodded. It's yours. It wasn't. That was the point. None of this was mine the way the people who mocked me meant it. Ownership, in our world, is a stewardship you can either honor or exploit. You choose every minute. Back at the Sterling, a framed photo appeared a week later on a hallway wall we used for storytelling, images of staff, guests, and the tiny moments that made places feel like places. The photo was of a pool at sunset, a white hat on a chair, a pastry box on a table, a shadow that looked like a new map. The caption read, Humility hides power. Arrogance exposes weakness. It wasn't a warning. It was a mirror. People wrote to me after the reunion story leaked, because stories leak when people need them. They wanted to know the secret. How to make a family respect you. How to carry truth without weaponizing it. How to survive 1,000 small cuts without bleeding out. I told them what the motel taught me: you build a life by choosing what you will not betray. Not your people. Not your principles. Not the night clerk who needs the shift to finish his degree. Not the housekeeper whose hands tell a story the lobby never will. And if you're lucky, you also learn when to finally say your own name in a room that once taught you to whisper. So here it is, said plainly, my name is Rachel Morrison. I built a company you can't see when you're looking for crowns. And when you come to my hotels, our hotels, know this: we are not here so you can pretend you matter more. We are here so you can remember that you do, just like everyone else. The family who mocked my motel job found out I own the places they bragged about. It made for a good reunion story, a clean reveal. But that's not the point. The point is what happened next. We paid what we owed. We wrote apologies. We learned names. We tipped. We toured the back halls. We practiced a different kind of wealth, one you can't post, but you can feel when someone hands you a room key and looks you in the eye like you belong. The rest is hospitality. Which is just another word for home.